Good evening. My name is Jim Conlan from RCB Radio Sport, West Clare, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Clare's FAI soccer officer, Denis Hynes, to hear his top 5 moments from Clare's Oscar Traynor campaign in the last decade. This feature this evening will also be broadcasted on our new YouTube channel, RCB Sport. And I suppose, Denis, before I start, we'll start the countdown when you reveal your 5th moment in the last decade of Clare Oscar's Traynor campaign. You've been to the forefront of the Oscar Traynor campaign in the last decade, and while Clare in the last decade has been a memorable time in terms of hurling and Gaelic football, it's also been a breath of fresh air for Clare soccer as well in terms of its success.
Yeah, definitely, Jim, and delighted to be on. It's a great initiative there now that RCB have, and in fairness, we're always great supporters of all sports, and in particular Clare soccer down the years. So delighted to be on this evening. Yeah, Jim, I suppose we have a strong tradition in the Oscar Traynor, going right back to 2004 with Hugh Kelly and Eddie Corrie and Gerard Mannion and John Kelly were at the helm when they captured the first title played in Newtown's grounds in Shannon.
Yeah.
And myself, I was just probably on the verge of being appointed development officer the following year for Clare. So that for me was it definitely instilled how important the Oscar Traynor was for Clare. It was probably the first high-profile soccer event to hit the county that time. So it's as we always say, it's the highest level within Clare. If you're a Clare soccer player, that you play, and then obviously if you get the profile there, you're looking to progress to League of Ireland and international honours. So we were lucky enough. We've good strong tradition established around the Oscar Traynor. We take it serious. We've had good experienced administrators and management, and the players that we'll touch on later. They treat it well. They treat it with the respect it deserves.
And I suppose, Denis, we'll start the countdown now, and you're bringing us right back to the start of the decade for your 5th moment here, right back to the beginning of Clare's Oscar Traynor campaign, back at the start of this decade, and you're bringing us back to 2010 and 2014 for your 5th moment.
Yeah, Jim, again, the 2010 one, it was a painful on-the-pitch experience even before the final, because Hugh Kelly, the Oscar Traynor instigator, you could call him, the legend of a manager, sadly passed away that year after the group stage. And the lads battled on manfully. They had an away win against Cork in the semi-final, and then the powers that be decided that the final would be played a week later. So you can imagine yourself trying to recover and get ready to go again for the final. So on the day, it didn't work out. They came up against a very, very good Wexford side. And again, then I suppose that progressed. 12s, 13s, 14s, good lads around, team becoming more experienced, great management team, Liam Murphy, Davy Ryan, all doing their bit. Got to the final against the AUL up in Dublin, and I suppose no more than ourselves in the football, you bench yourself when you come up against Kerry, or in the hurling when you come up against Kilkenny. So for Clare soccer players, when you go get a chance to show what you can do up in Dublin, you really try and take it, And again, on the day, I suppose it was one that got away. Now, granted, that Dublin squad, they were going for 5 in a row, Oscar Traynor, so they were a seasoned team. But I suppose everyone looking back would have felt, yeah, that was one that, we could have nicked one, So I think there was a feeling after that then of a bit of unfinished business from the players. Donny Garrihy at the time was chairperson, and I suppose Donny as well,
yeah,
as everyone. you know, there's no unfinished business with Donny until the business gets done, you know. So Donny then, that following season, Mick Shields was appointed manager, and a couple of campaigns there, and again an away trip up to Inishowen in the semi-final in 2015. Again, was another one that we were beaten 1-0 on the day. Another one that certainly should have been boxed off, you know.
I suppose, Denis, that brings us right up now to your fourth moment, and this comes from 2016, and it's not a semi-final or a final, but it's a quarter-final, and a 2-1 win after extra time against Limerick District. And what are your memories of that, and why is that come in at number 4 for you?
Well, I suppose, Jim, yeah, people might say key moments to be highlights to be semi-finals and finals, but you know, in any journey, there's a day or an occasion or something happens that it's kind of a light bulb moment. Everyone, it's a bridge you get over, and it brings you on to the next level. So, in fairness to the lads, now majority of the squad that time were well seasoned as regards Oscar Traynor. You know, they were experienced. They had been to semi-finals that particular season. You know, our preparation started very early in August. We worked with an extended squad. We came through the group. Okay, a couple of the Galway game in particular sticks out. You know, we got a draw away in Galway. We progressed. We carried on. We beat Mayo. We beat Roscommon, and we topped the group for the first time. You know, so we were going into that quarter final with a bit of momentum. And again, I suppose the local bragging rights, a lot of the time, people might see Limerick as being a little bit a level above Clare or whatever. You know, you hear it, you see it on social media or whatever.
Yeah.
So we really targeted that game in particular. You know, and at this stage, we had probably added a few additions to the squad in experience, really quality players like Barry Ryan, you know, Paddy Purcell had come in, and these lads had seen and done it all before at League of Ireland level, you know. So if you're looking for little advantages to get you across the line, you know, those type of individuals in the dressing room certainly helped. On the day, you know, we came up against on paper a strong Limerick squad. You know, they had 8 Irish junior internationals and ex-League of Ireland players. So, you know, players know themselves, Jim, when it's a big game. Management, you know that if we can crack this game, the whole competition opens up. You know, so on the day, we had our game plan. We were totally focused on and off the pitch, and you know, that reflected itself in the game. And in particular, one moment stands out. Limerick being the quality side that they were at the time, they kind of had us under the pump for spells. And there was one shot in particular, it was deflected, and Barry Ryan had gone to his right, and the ball hit the crossbar and bounced down. And an incoming player from Limerick, striker from about 3 yards, headed it. And, you know, the whole ground said, this is a goal. And Barry somehow managed to stick up his paw and clawed out. And that, Jim, you could sense it. It was like sticking a pin in a balloon. The Limerick crowd, the Limerick players on the pitch, they knew after that there wasn't going to be anything for them out of that game, you know. And in fairness to the lads, they kicked on. Owen Hayes did his usual trick and put us ahead. And then Joe Collins, who's now playing with Galway United, Joe came in off the bench and got us that insurance second goal, you know, to get us the win, you know. So there was a definite sense of momentum after that one, and we definitely came away from Pike Rovers ground saying, okay, it's all ahead of us now, you know.
And I suppose, Denis, that moves us on nicely to number 3, and we're progressing along the line. And for number 3, you're talking about your 2016, that final win against the Leinster Senior League. And for anyone to want to go on YouTube, they can actually watch the highlights of that game, and a spectacular victory. And not many times do we hear about someone scoring 4 goals on a big occasion like that. And David McCarthy to score 4 goals in that 5-2 win on the biggest highlight of them all, Oscar Traynor Day. And it was dare I say, it was a comfortable victory in the end.
Well, it was, Jim, and I'll let you into a little exclusive now. I've kept this in a very tight circle, but I'll tell you a story related to that final now. And you mentioned Davy there, and he scoring 4 goals and grabbing the man of the match and all the accolades. And here's the beauty of so-called qualified coaches, Jim. Okay, we got the quick start, and we were 2-1 up and coming into half-time. And we were kind of under a small bit of pressure. And a certain coach that won't be named, but he's very close to at the moment, was sitting on the bench, and he was questioning whether we should make a change and how quick we should make this change. And he was fairly adamant now that this number 10, McCarthy, he wouldn't see the second half. And, you know, only for the senior manager of the management team been not as enthusiastic, we'll say, and putting his foot down. We might have no Oscar Traynor, Jim. So, you know, that's why people are the managers and people are just the coaches, you know. So I'm sure Davey, if he listens in now, he'll take a smile out of that one. But if he's listening, Davey, if I had my way, you were gone. You wouldn't have seen the second half. But thankfully he did. And you know, there's a bit of karma about that final, Jim, in that number one, it was in Dublin. So that thing of we were back in Dublin in 2016. Maybe people that hadn't seen Clare playing before, they would come to this Oscar Traynor final because it was on their doorstep, you know. And so that was one sweet victory. And then for Davy to do what he did in the second half, and for some of the lads, Darrell Lead, for example, joined the squad that year, and Darrell was in the 2004 squad. So you're talking 12 years later. Darrell gave an exhibition in the final, you know, and in particular, it's a great one for youngsters. Everyone nowadays, the debate is parents are telling them kick the ball away and coaches are telling them kick the ball away and get rid of it. But if people watch the video of the goals in that final, in particular for Davies' fourth one, I think, Darrell Leeds sets it up, and people will know Darrell from teaching in the Holy Family and the badminton club he does in Ennis. But you can hear people shouting from the crowd, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. And what Darrell does is he takes an extra 1 or 2 touches, and that allows Davy to pick his run and to go on and finish. You know, so again, that one, it was a sweet one because of the fact that it was in Dublin. You were in the so-called home of football. Again, the backstory to the final, it was probably played on the hottest day of the year on an AstroTurf. We lost Darren Murphy in the warm-up, and by rejigging the team, Stephen Kelly ended up playing centre back, you know. And then, of course, the Irish junior manager is at the match and watching the final, you know. So did that play a part in what happened down the line for Stephen and for Owen Hayes as regards getting capped? You know, it certainly it was a good shop window for him, you know.
And I suppose, Denis, to get over the line and achieve that Oscar Traynor triumph, and we all know Donny Gary, he's a flamboyant character, but for Donny there was always that sort of match plan and that sort of game plan, and the preparation for that final in an aspect of every detail. I'm sure that she scouted the opposition thoroughly and no stone was left unturned. And even on the day at half-time, I suppose, was there much instructions given to the players in terms of the roles and their duties on the day?
Well, as you said, Jim, like, you know, Donny and his methods, we certainly, there was no stone unturned and no angle not covered. And as you say, we hit the road a lot, scouting teams, and in the preparations we did with the lads, like anything, you give them a couple of little ideas that might help them. The biggest factor, just thinking back on it that day, was actually dealing with the heat and the AstroTurf. For example, we would have decided we'd have a pre-match warm-up, but on that day we had to change the warm-up. We had to go in under the whatever shade was there, etc. Your hydration, all that came into play on that day, more so. But again, I go back to, if this was a group of 18 or 19-year-olds, Jim, yeah, you'd be holding their hand and you'd be worried and but like the players we had in that dressing room, exceptional players. Certainly 7, 8, 9 of them would have easily graced League of Ireland football at that time. So the standards that the lads themselves individually had, and then as a group, I know I was quoted on a Clare FM radio when we got the job initially. I said, I think we have an easy gig, and that was my opinion of the players, or the potential players that we were going to be dealing with. So I was delighted for Donny, David Russell, who'd been playing in 2010, who was a massive important part of the management team, because David was still playing locally, so he was on the pitch and he could gauge how players were going, and he was playing up against them, and he was that link between maybe myself and Donny and the players. And then we have one of the best physios around, in any sport at any level, in John Earls. John and his medical support of the players. I mean, our injury numbers were more or less zero for that whole season. So we didn't have an army, but we had good people with genuine interest, number one, and then we all kind of complemented each other nicely.
I suppose, Denis, we'll move on now to the number 2 moment, and this is a semi-final. We've touched on a quarter-final, we've touched on a final itself, but we're moving on to 2017, and this is a semi-final, and against a team that gave you heartbreak in 2010 in Wexford. This time you got your revenge away and a 1-0 victory.
Yeah, and I suppose it sets up kind of a common denominator with this group of players, and going back through the Oscar Traynor, Jim, in that, we love the away days. Whatever it was about playing away, it sparked something in the lads. Maybe they dig in their heels, refuse to lose, and certainly this Wexford game was again, it was key, obviously, to get into the final, but the circumstances around it, Jim, were really the most testing situations that we were put in, over the 2 years or whatever, for different reasons. We had a few players injured, we had players unavailable because of work, and we ended up travelling to Wexford with 13 fit players, and if anyone listening is familiar with Wexford Youth's ground, it's probably one of the biggest pitches in the country. So if you add in the drive down to Wexford, the fact that you're going to be playing 90 minutes on a massive pitch, and that you're down bodies, and even some of the 13 that we togged on the day, a couple of those were carrying knocks as well. So it was really one where you had to circle the wagons. Now, when we came in, first of all, we asked a couple of values to come out through the squad, and one of those was we would say an honest effort, So if you're in, you're in. If you're dodgy about it, we don't want to see you. If you're going to come up looking for excuses, we don't want to see you. If you're not willing to put in 90 minutes plus, we don't want to see you. So we were trying to gauge whether that was in the lads. You know, now they had proven it obviously, but this was the real test of that. Because Wexford team, again, because they have the League of Ireland outlet in their county as well, you know, they had good quality players coming back from League of Ireland. But again, on the day, we were comfortable. We were comfortable, even though physically we were up against it. Our style of play on the day was for us to sit behind the ball and hit them on the breakaway, you know, and with Davy McCarthy and Owen Hayes up top, those two lads linked up as they do, and Hayes got taken down for one penalty, and again then later on towards the end he got taken down again for a second one, you know. So 2-0 win into the final. By all accounts, the trip home was an enjoyable one for the lads on the bus, and there was a couple of stops along the way and all that. So all that kind of goes with the away trips, and for this group in particular, because they had travelled around the country so much, you know, that helped kind of foster the team spirit.
Yeah, and I suppose, Denis, you mentioned there about the panel and being depleted of numbers, and I suppose we all see the great work that's been done in underage Clare soccer through in terms of all the squads and in relation to Kennedy Cup, all the way up in terms of youth soccer, and maybe in terms of the youth team. Have you able to? 2017, you were probably a very mature team, an awful lot of experienced players in terms of between this maybe the 26 to 29 bracket. Were you able to bring in at that time maybe a few youth players to train with the squad as well when you were depleted numbers?
We didn't take that approach, Jim, because the lads were, you know, we had worked with a tight squad. But again, we had some new faces. Owen Whelan, for example, he would have been there in 2016. Owen was there. Owen would have only been turning 18, I would say. 19 for that one, you know. And we had new faces like his brother Niall, who played with Tulla in his schoolboy days and had been very successful with NUIG. Niall was a big bonus. And then we attracted for a large transfer fee, attracted a very young Colin Ryan from Newmarket. Someone said he won a few old hurling medals there, so we said he might be an addition to us, you know. So especially on the days like away in Wexford, you could see why we wanted Colin Ryan in the squad, you know, because again, experience, had seen it all before, knew how to manage the game, and did the exact same thing in the final, you know. So no, in fairness to the lads, the quality we had, Jim, it wasn't the thing that we went dipping into real youngsters to join the panel, because the standard of player we had, it would probably be intimidating if you brought in some of the younger players, you know.
And I suppose, Denis, finally, before I bring you on to the number one moment and we reveal that, just in terms of the heartbeat, in terms of the makeup of the Oscar Traynor panel, in terms of those really decisive, victorious years, we see an awful lot of sprinkling from the Innis clubs, Avenue, Innistown, then probably Newmarket, and an awful lot of sprinkling of Shannon players as well. In terms of players coming in then from parts of West Clare, parts of East Clare, was it a sort of a daunting experience of probably were playing maybe to further down the Premier League, the Premier Division in Clare, or in the First Division, in terms of not achieving much success maybe with their clubs, and while Newmarket, the Avenues, the Shannon Towns were just so dominant?
Yeah, again, Jim, I think the players that we earmarked in particular, you know, definitely through myself, I would have known, no more than yourself involved in the football, I would have known them back along the years in Clare squads, and they would have been away to tournaments, etc. You know, the likes of the Tulla contingent of Dara Corrie, Niall Whelan, Tommy McKeown. You know, we would have had them in a Clare youth team 6 or 7 years previous, you know. But again, I was just looking at it there today. Over the 2 years, I think we worked with 27 players, just from the two final squads, and then probably extended. We probably had 35 players, I would say,
Okay.
over the 2 years. And the clubs represented, as you said, you had Newmarket Avenue, Ennistown, Cool FC were represented, Tully United were represented, Sporting Ennistown were represented, Bridge United were represented, and then you had Newmarket, so there was 9. The 2 Shannon clubs, Shannon Town and Shannon Hills, were represented as well. So across that successful period, there was 9 clubs represented,
Okay.
So again, it's a nod to the work that's been done by schoolboy clubs and junior clubs across the county,
I suppose, Dennis, the big reveal now, number 1 for you, and we're going to another final and another victorious moment for Clare. And this is, as to say, we've seen the Last Dance, we've seen our 3-peat and a 6-peat, but this was a 2-peat, and to say to win it once is really enjoyable. To win it twice back to back, it's a sense of rewarding, in the sense that maybe the first year wasn't a pox in any sense, that we are the best team in the country, and to retain it is something I say very few sides have done throughout the Oscar Traynor history.
Yeah, it's a funny competition, Jim. In fairness, it kind of does go with a dominant team or league for a couple of years. There was a Kilkenny team way back in the day, won 3 in a row, and that the Dublin AUL team won 5 in a row, and so that was for that 2017, it was a real motivator, as you said, to put a second one on the wall, and again, that kind of thing of unfinished business. It was a way to Inishowen. What they do with the Oscar Traynor, Jim, is it's the flick of a coin. You could have got a final in Clare, but again, because of the lads and their background, their history, that the lads really actually relished the chance of going to Inishowen. And I suppose for management teams or people watching, listening in, like I say, in 2015, we took the decision to travel up on the morning of the game for a 5 o'clock semi-final all the way to Inishowen. Now, if people get their Google Maps out and they type in where Inishowen is, I think there's Inishowen, there's a bit of a road, and then there's Iceland and the Faroe Islands. So you're up the top of the country. And I think that was the learnings for everyone involved, that if we were coming back up here for a meaningful match, that we would do things differently. So we had done our scouting as usual. We had, Donny, myself, had been up a couple of weeks before to watch Inishowen, so we had checked out the hotels on the way up and where we would stop, and we had timed the distance, and etc. And we took the decision that we were going to go up the night before, and again, reflected of the players. They wanted it that way. Lads took time off work, etc. So we left on the Saturday. Now, another vital decision that we got to influence was we got to kick off the following morning at 12 noon.
Okay.
So there was the lads, we arrived up there about 6 o'clock. The lads could relax. We were in an excellent quiet hotel on the edge of Inishowen in Buncrana. And, it was lights out at 11 o'clock. The lads could get up in the morning, and we knew that we weren't hanging around. You know yourself from being involved in the teams. Some lads can get worked up. Management can get worked up, a bit nervy, etc. if you're hanging around. So the 12 o'clock kickoff was very important. It was vital. The actual game itself, we knew that we were coming up against the quality side. Again, because of their location, they would have players coming back from League of Ireland, from Finn Harps. Derry City is only 10 minutes over the road. So that was the challenge. First half we actually played, football-wise, we played some of our best stuff. Probably definitely should have had one penalty. We go in 0-0 at half time. Again, couple of little bits of advice given to players at half time and just before the second half. And again, back to the Davy McCarthy, Owen Hayes trick. Davy picked up a ball just after half time, threaded it down the side for Hazo, and he struck it across the keeper into the bottom corner. So again, we were in this 1-0 position similar to Wexford, and I think this is where the Wexford game really helped us, because the lads, they had proven to themselves, right, we can sit back and we can defend. You know, I suppose if you were going to think, some people like their teams to be like Barcelona.
Yeah.
But this group of players took a pride, Jim, in, if you were to compare them, they were kind of like the Italians.
Juventus.
You know, Juventus, exactly. You know, you look at a group of players and you see what are their strengths. And once you get the players to recognise, yeah, this is what we are good at, lads, and it's successful, you know, they'll stick at it. And in fairness to the lads, they gave an exhibition, everyone to a man, of how to defend, how to work for each other, how to keep a shape. The players that came in impacted the game. And again, we rode our luck. Well, again, they broke through at one stage, hit the post. I think in the 94th minute, and we were hanging on for 1-0. Fella gets through, and the value of Barry Ryan. Barry spreads himself, and we actually have a picture of it. The ball hits Barry Ryan's studs and just rolls wide. You know, but you know that saying, Jim, of if you work hard enough, you get the breaks. You know, and that was a day where the lads certainly deserved the breaks. You know, and it was a real satisfaction. Even speaking to the lads afterwards when they recovered, they were buzzing in the manner of the win.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things when you've been on the road as a group so long, there's so much trust built up within the group. And then nearly every test that comes your way, you have something for it. And I suppose the biggest compliment that can be paid to your team, Jim, or in any sport, is from the opposition's fans. Yeah. And even at halftime in that match, when we were coming off the pitch, two Inishowen supporters now, and they were well experienced supporters. They would have seen a lot of football down the years. They complimented us coming off the pitch at halftime. You know, they said you're a fine side. You know, and that was only at halftime. The game was only 0-0. You know, so sometimes like that, when other people actually pay you the compliments, it justifies why you do it, you know.
I suppose, Denis, that concludes your top 5 moments of Clare Oscar Traynor campaigns from 2010 2020. Denis Hynes, the Clare Development Soccer Officer for County Clare, heavily involved in the Oscar Traynor, been part of the management for the last decade or so. And remember to tune in to RCB Radio Sport, West Clare live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM, and online at www.rcb.ie. And reminder that this video of this interview will go up on our YouTube page, RCB Sport. So do check it out if you want to relive some of the key moments of Clare's Oscar Traynor campaign success, the 2 victories over the last decade or so. And last thing for me to do this evening is thank you again, Denis, for speaking about your memories, and hopefully we'll see many more success for Clare Oscar Traynor, not this year I'd say with the current climate, but from 2021 onwards. Thanks, Denis.
No problem, Jim. Great stuff. Thanks a million.